Behind every great work of art, there is a story behind it. The artworks selected are proof that, when looking at a work of art, first impressions can be deceiving. Gauguin, Dali, Dubuffet, and Basquiat's work are prime examples that reality is more than what you see.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Is a painting by the French artist Eugene Henry Paul Gauguin. He began the painting in 1897 and completed it in 1898. In 1897, Gauguin decided to kill himself. He was sick, miserable, in debt, and abandoned by those who owed him money. His tropical paradise of Tahiti had failed him. He wished, before dying, to paint one great last testimony picture, and summoning all his strength in a single burst of energy, he painted this canvas, his largest and the summation of all his thoughts and ideas. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Of its entirety, he says, I believe that this canvas not only surpasses all my preceding ones, but that I shall never do anything better, or even like it. Gauguin indicated that the fresco light painting should be read from right to left, with the three major figure groups illustrating the questions posed in the title. The three women with the sleeping infant represent the beginning of life. In the middle group, two figures confide their thoughts to each other, as another looks in astonishment at these two people who dare to think of their destiny, symbolizes the daily existence of young adulthood. And in the final group, according to the artist, an old woman approaching death appears reconciled and resigned to her thoughts. At her feet, a strange white bird represents the futility of words. The blue idol in the background represents what Gauguin described as the beyond. Reality is more than what you see, and in this case, Gauguin urges us to ponder not only our very existence, but also our existence after death. Is there one waiting, or is this all there is for us? Gauguin says of this, awakening with my work finished, I say to myself, where do we come from, what are we, where are we going? A thought which no longer has anything to do with the canvas, expressed in words quite apart on the wall which surrounds it. The beyond rules our primitive souls, the imaginary consolation of our suffering, vague and ignorant as we are about the mystery of our origin and our destiny.
Salvador Dali was one of the most famous artists of the 20th century, and to some the most outrageous. He was born in Figueres, Spain, to Salvador Dali y Cusi and Felipa Domínguez Ferres. At an early age, Salvador's artistic skills began to show. His parents fully supported his abilities and sent him to art school. In 1922, Dali enrolled in the Academia de San Fernando in Madrid, Spain. Here he began exploring many forms of art, including classical painter Velázquez, from whom he adopted his signature mustache. Dali was also influenced in his work by the Dada philosophy. Between 1926 and 1929, he met Spanish painter Joan Miró along with Paul Eulert and René Magritte, who introduced Dali to Surrealism. During this exploration of Surrealism, Dali creates the well-known masterpiece, Persistence of Memory, completed in 1931. In this painting, 4 clocks are displayed in what appears to be an isolated place or empty desert scene. The clocks are not your usual clocks. They are not flat and perfectly round, but are bent out of shape and seem to be melting away. The painting is a little over a foot wide and includes familiar objects in unnatural habitats. Dali was obsessed with the morphology of hard and soft, and displayed, lying on the ground, is a large head in profile, lacking its bone structure. This surrealist painting depicts the notion that reality is more than what you see, simply because what we see in Dali's painting is not real at all. Instead, he creates this new reality, and the more you continue to look and search, the more you continue to find. Dali refers to his paintings as hand-painted dream photographs, and in his work, Persistence of Memory, depicts a dream state where the irregular melting clocks symbolize the erratic passage of time that we experience while dreaming. In the dream state of art, the reality of it is that we have no control over time, and in this particular dream, time is melting away. Dali portrays how arbitrary our everyday concept of time can be. Surrealism is destructive, but it destroys only what it considers to be shackles, limiting our vision. Dali.
Jean Dubuffet was a French painter born in 1901. His idealistic approach to aesthetics embraced so-called low art and eschewed standards of beauty in favor of what he believed to be more authentic and humanistic. Corps des Dames, meaning ladies' bodies, is a series of 35 paintings of the female nude. They are considered Dubuffet's best-known works. The intent was to show that women are more than how society views them and are more beautiful beyond the standards and norms of society. Dubuffet built his approach of this series based on his love for art of the mentally ill. He was inspired by their art because that no matter how it looked in the end, it was still considered beautiful to the artist, even though it was possible to be rejected by society. Dubuffet reacted against the conventional ideas of beauty and rejected the Western tradition of the female nude. Reality is more than what you see and goes beyond what meets the eye. In reality, there are things that we don't know about. We just see the surface. This work relates to this theme because although Dubuffet is presenting the figure in a frontal way, the viewer can still see other sides of the woman's body. The formless, grotesque, and humorous figure represents the direct antithesis to classical proportion and beauty. In this work, the female body is presented frontally and two-dimensionally, as if it had been run over by a cement roller. The object is the female nude body, not as an emblem of canonic beauty, but as tough, dense matter, highly worked yet impenetrable, flattened down and spread across a canvas that barely contains her. This piece is made up of blocky contours, small heads, tiny round breasts, and long thin arms, either scratched into the body at an angle or raised above it. Most notable are the varying rough and crusted textures of thick paint and the painter's innumerable ways of spreading, scraping, and scoring the rich pigment. Overall, the female body is distorted and the sexual parts are laid bare. As our theme states, reality is more than what you see. The overall image and forms of this work are meant to be seen as the direct result of the artist's vigorous, crude attack of the surface with paint, knife, and brush. Dubuffet observed that women's bodies had long been associated with a very specious notion of beauty. The reality seen here in Corps des Dames is that beauty can be much more than what meets the eye. It's more than what appears on the surface.
Jean-Michel Basquiat began his artistic venture as a graffiti artist in New York City in the late 1970s and evolved into an American neo-expressionist painter in the 1980s. After dropping out of high school, he attempted to support himself in the streets of Brooklyn by selling t-shirts and homemade punk-inspired postcards. In 1976, Basquiat and a friend began spray painting graffiti on buildings in Lower Manhattan. In the early 1980s, a series of multi-artist exhibitions and articles brought him to the attention of the New York art world. His paintings emphasized human intellect, and he often focused on juxtapositions such as wealth versus poverty, integration versus segregation, and inner versus outer experience. Basquiat's painting from 1981, Per Capita, depicts a single male figure in boxer shorts set in a vaguely defined cityscape combined with abstract atmospheric forms. Reality is more than what you see. At first glance, the work appears as aloof doodles and scribbles of notes, when in reality, the assimilation of figure, text, and symbolic references morph into a narrative drawn from Basquiat's own experiences as a means of addressing larger human concerns. The text included in the composition is a partial list of states in the Union and the respective per capita income of their citizens. The artist is attempting to highlight the inequities of monetary distribution that divide the wealthy and the impoverished. It is evident that the artist was concerned with the common people and their labor, as well as the birthright of all humankind to be entitled to the equal distribution of rights and responsibilities. Upon first inspection, the painting doesn't seem to have a clear message or theme, but when reviewed in the context of the time period in which it was painted and the artist's previous personal trials and tribulations, the painting becomes an important political and social commentary on the ever-present gap between the rich and the poor.
The artworks represented are only a few of an endless amount of images who at first glance appear to say one thing. But with a closer look, each image has a reality of its own that becomes evident. This reality is more than what we see. As Aristotle once said, the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance.